Okay, let's put ourselves on the West Europe server for a change. And resume. Pull up the live stream. Make sure the volume levels are good, it's looking okay. Pull up my own instructions for getting the aircraft up and running. Okay, pre-flight. I have the correct control configuration already, so in the aircraft, so this is going to be the simplified instructions that I've followed in the past. You can download them from Ko-fi, from my account. It's in the links of the video already. AEO, Airborne Electrical Operator Station. So you can either get to that from the tablet, or you can click here as well. Which gets you to the same thing. So master switch over here. It's a few days since I've done this actually. So master switch goes to on. We open the cox and then we press the button and that fires up the APU and you can see the PSI and the temperature climbing, which is good. We can uncage the battery isolation, switch it on and recage it. I'm just going to change this so I can hear it as well, because I can't at the moment. There we go. And then we're going to turn the alternators on for the APU, so it's generating electricity, and then recage them with them in the on position, which is good. First pilot position via the tablet. So you can click on the screw at the bottom left, which takes you back to here, and then the screw again takes you back to here. So we're going to go and turn the oxygen on for the pilot, and for, if I can get to it, it's right behind his hand, look. If you press Control and 6, it shows you the same panel without the co-pilot sat there. Turn the oxygen on for the co-pilot, and then Control 5 takes us over to the left side of the cockpit. We're going to turn the radio on and turn the volume up on the radio. Go back to the cockpit and we'll calibrate the altimeter, which wasn't far off actually, and calibrate compasses if we need to. Doesn't look like we need to. So then we go Alt and 1 and we can go and open the fuel cox. So that's done. So then over to the right hand side of the cockpit, and we need to get to this switch here and all the way forwards. And external lights, so Control 6 again. External lights go to on, nav lights go to flash. And then for engine start, we go and make sure we have lifted all the throttles out of shut off. There we go. Over to the side of the cockpit. We'll do a rapid start. So the master switch and the ignition goes on, and then hit the starter for all of the engines at once. And then we basically wait for the engines to come up. Okay, so engines are up and running. Come back over to the AFE console and I'm just going to check my own checklist. Yeah, so we go and turn all of the alternators to on and we cage them all. You can see they're all generating electricity, but we're actually going to press the AAPP button, which means we'll use power from the auxiliary power unit, and in the official guidance it says to typically use that below 5,000 feet anyway, and then you might switch over during cruise to use the engine electrical generation. Anyway, so that's done. We can go back over to the tablet name, sorry, not the tablet, the side panel, and we can turn off the master switches and the ignition system. Then go back to the cockpit. So we need to click here, whoops, and then here, and we'll pull out the central pedestal, move that arm out of the way, go and turn all of the fuel pumps on. I haven't put fuel tanks in the bomb bays. I don't think we're going to need them. We pull the power up on the autopilot. It takes a while and it will say ready when it's done. While we're waiting for that, we can go back over to the side and sort out the PFC. So we need to pull up these switches and then press the A, R and E buttons to start the powered flight controls, and then the feel buttons should go out automatically. Now they go. We haven't gone yet and set up the radios, so this can go to TR on the radio, this can go to norm for TechAnt, and we're not going to be using TechAnt to begin with, just making sure we've got it ready. Okay, so back in the tablet we can go and tell them to close the bomb doors, close the crew doors, remove the chocks, remove the palace, remove the ground power, sorry, and we're essentially ready to taxi. So we go over to here and we go and put on the taxi lights. Let's have a look at where we are. So we're at Scatster on the main island of Shetland. So there is no wind, which is quite lucky. So I'm not sure we'll fit down that taxiway, so we'll go straight onto the runway and then backtrack runway 24 for takeoff. So how are we doing for room to turn? Let's have a look from outside. I think we'll just about make that left turn, won't we, to loop back on ourselves. Should we do this from the outside view? Okay. So, just in case anybody didn't know, you can actually drop the ordnance in the Vulcan. There's a hidden feature. So we can simulate it. Should we do it during the takeoff? We're going to bomb the coast of the Shetland Islands. So if we go and... should we use blue steel just to make it a bit more fun? So, oops. Skid the front tyres. So we'll now notice we now have blue steel underneath us. So once we get to altitude... oh, while I'm busy doing that, look, I've almost gone into the grass. We're going to need all of this runway and then some, by the way. It's only about a 5,000 foot runway. So taking off full throttle with the Vulcan is fun because the nose tries to lift, and of course until you've got any air moving over the control surfaces, good luck controlling that. So let's look. So yeah, lights out for the main warning, so we're all looking good in terms of configuration. Let's turn the head tracking on. And admire our own shadow. Actually, instead of blue streak, because it's quite boring, isn't it? Let's go and put bombs in. A full complement of bombs in the bomb bay. So the trick is, although you can't actually drop weapons in the flight simulator, the loophole they've used is you can emergency jettison the bombs, which does the same thing. You actually get to see them fall from the bomb bay. Of course, this is going to make our takeoff weight incredibly heavy. So we're going to have essentially 20,000 pound bombs that are going to fall out of the belly of the aeroplane. I do apologise to the ground crew. We're about to paint all of their approach lights with fumes in a few moments. There's going to be soot everywhere. Holding the nose down with negative stick pressure, coming up through 100 knots, 130, begin the rotation, and we're up. Gear up. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these bombs before we really go anywhere. So I'm going to go down to the tablet and we're going to click on the bomb doors here to open it, and we'll go and have a look to see what we've got inside. A lot. Okay, let's level out. So you just get a nice animation, but that's all you really get. Obviously you'd have to map it to be able to watch it happen live. So let's go and close those bomb doors and get on with our flight. Say goodbye to Scotland. We just bombed the Orkneys. Or Shetland, sorry. So we're going to do a U-turn, fly out. We're just doing an orbit here of Scotland, and then we'll fly directly south down to Sumburgh, and we'll go and do a touch and go before we carry on. Okay, 250 knots at 8,000 feet. So you can see there's our direction there. Just coming around to 240 degrees. That's where we just took off from. So we've taken off, flown round, emptied the bomb bay, and we're on our way. What we could do Okay, so aeroplane should be following the heading bug. So we've got it in bomb mode. Oh, I haven't got track switched on, have I? There we go. So the aeroplane will kink left now. There it goes, it's rolling gently left to turn the heading bug towards south. We've got altitude hold on. We're at 8,500 feet, doing just under 250 knots. And we're now making our way south. Speed's just creeping up towards 240 knots. ting wall off to our left, which you can see down there. So down at the far end of this island chain you will see Sumburgh. There's hardly any wind, so we could play games with coming in on the ILS. I can show you how the directors work then, can't I? So 108.5, 82 degrees. So what we can do is rotate this round to align 82 degrees with the top of the instrument. Oh, look what it's doing, it's a real pain. When you do that, it moves the heading buck, which is a real pain in the backside. So that's the runway direction, but we actually want to be going south, and it's rotated it with the Omni bearing selector. So you need to be really careful in this aeroplane. So that it's rolling out, but the autopilot is very, very slow to react. So a lot of the time you're best off actually disengaging the autopilot because of that problem. Yeah, which is actually quite fortuitous for us because we probably want to go out that way anyway. So we probably want, we probably want 190-ish. So but look how slowly that's rolling back. So there's the flight director, and that's where the airplane actually is. And you can see the autopilot lags massively behind the flight director all the time. It can actually become a problem in case you end up hand flying it because of it. So we're still doing 230 and a bit knots. Oops. Yeah, we want to go further out, don't we? And start descending. So to descend, all we have to do is put the autopilot down here into IAS mode. This is a real pain with head tracking sometimes to do extreme angles. So we're in indicated airspeed mode, so it will have picked up the speed at which we engaged it. If we leave this in the middle, and then we just pull this throttles back, and you will see it will hold altitude, or do its best to, but you'll see the sorry, not hold altitude, hold airspeed, and it's obviously using pitch to hold the airspeed. Again, it's not brilliant at it, but it's pretty good. So we're dropping at 3,000 feet a minute. Okay, so let's just double check the airfield elevation at Sumburgh is 21 feet. So 108.5 on the radios. So what you can do, and again, this is, I'm going to turn head tracking off for a moment. So we've got the tablet here, and you get a reference here, so you can turn these knobs here. If you keep an eye on the nav radio, you can have 108.5, there you go. So that's the ILS for Sumburgh. It's just tuned in, and you can now see that's come up on the HSI. So we actually want the in localizer mode, sorry, it will be reflecting that. So what we're going to do is go and disengage the autopilot. So in other words, the autopilot's not doing anything there, we're hand flying, but we still get to see the flight director and the HSI. So the runway is that way. Our airplane's going that way. Yeah, so this is all a bit odd if you've never seen one of these before. So we're down at 4,400 and descending. If we put head tracking back on and look out over there, you can actually see the airfield. It's just there, look. So you can see, look, we're almost on the glide slope height right now. So in order for the flight directors to... This is a bit of a misnomer. Although it says flight director, it's really showing you the beam. So if you're in localizer mode, it's showing you where the beam is relative to you, and we know at sort of 2,800 feet, if you think about where we are in terms of the beam, sort of 2,800 feet at 10 miles out, 8 miles out, we're going to be about the right height. Now there's the runway, look. So let's begin our turn, because this thing is crazy slow at turning. So we're bringing this heading bug round to face the same direction as the runway. But also keeping an eye, we're still dropping it a little bit too quickly. Although it says here we're online. So that's a good point. Did I actually check that? Oh no, we haven't got glide slope here. That's why it's in the middle. We've only got localizer. So it's up to us to know that this far out we should be about 2,400 feet. Looks about right, doesn't it? So then at about 4 miles out, and we're not going to get DME either, because this doesn't have it, and we haven't got a TACAN which would give us distance. Yeah, we've gone off to the right slightly, which you can see here. It's just swinging in. It must be, is it an offset ILS actually? Yes, it is, look. Slightly offset. Okay, so gear down. Down to 165 knots. Let's go and have a look outside. Looks very pretty, doesn't it? For a big hulking lump of metal. Big noisy smoky lump of metal. So you can see the PAPI lights. So at the moment they look like they're reading all white. It's difficult to see from here. Oh no, 1 red, 3 white, so we're a little bit high. Remember, we're only doing a touch and go, we're not doing a full stop. This is in the wrong place in the cockpit, isn't it? Just corrected it. So we don't keep seeing the back of the seat through our head. Yeah, still remarkably close. So what I'll do is that. There we go. That's better. So we're getting a bit slow. Can you hear that? Turbulence over the wing. Doesn't like going much slower than 150 knots on approach. Normally you wouldn't get slower than 150 unless you're over the runway. So we're looking good on the PAPIs. Airspeed's looking good now. Just have to be careful with the engines because the spool up and spool down time's quite slow. Spoilers out. Flare. Down, full throttle. Spoilers back in. And rotate. Gear up. Okay, so now we're just going to be cruising for the next little while. We're going to go and switch the master mode here back to cruise, because we'll just be doing navigation for the next little while. So our initial heading, we almost need to double back again then, 223 degrees. So let's get it sorted out first before we even think about engaging the autopilot. So we can go to bomb mode, which is heading bug mode, and we can spin the gauge round to 223. put 223 at the top. Just keep an eye on the nose and the speed. We're going quite slowly. So typically you haven't got much negative elevator in the Vulcan, so you can easily control the nose in the turn by just overbanking and using the rudder. So you can see the bug is coming round slowly to the direction we want to be going. So I kind of learnt the hard way with controlling the Vulcan on a longer flight by doing a group flight in amongst commercial traffic, which taught me everything in a hurry about handling it. Okay, so let's go and engage this again. We'll go for altitude hold. Track mode is already on, I think. So what is it doing? What is it doing? It's in bomb mode. Has it lost track of what mode it should be in? Interesting. It should just be going for 223 degrees. I'm going to turn the head tracking off because it's being a pain. Oh, I haven't got the bug. I'm going for heading mode, aren't I? It should be going this way. Which is fine though, because that brings us back onto the track by the time it reacts. But again, look at how slowly the autopilot reacts. So I had aligned the omni-bearing selector, I hadn't aligned the heading bug. Rookie mistake. And now we're going to do a really big fishtail unless we just take control. So if we disengage, we can throw the aeroplane round the corner. Much more quickly and violently than the autopilot would. Okay, see what I mean? So then we can go and re-engage it. And we can go for altitude hold with where we are at the moment. And it's just stabilising it now. We'd overcorrected a little bit and we're back onto the track. Okay, so we can now take stock. We're climbing slowly at the moment. There we go. So it's just zeroing out the climb, just above 8,000 feet. We're going a bit fast. Thankfully we're not commercial traffic, so the 250 knot rule doesn't really apply to us. So we're going to go towards Kirkwall, and you can see this is a VOR station at Kirkwall, 108.60. So if we go and tune that in 108.60, so we want to tune the decimals, which we've now done. So if we wanted to, knowing we're already almost on track, if we switch the director over to use the localizer, you should see that light up. What's the range on it? Oh, it's only 25-mile range. That's no good to us, is it? So we're going to go back to bomb mode. Moment. Now, has it disengaged because it had nothing to track? No, it hasn't. So, to illustrate that, it's quite amusing that it's got such a short range. If we add a range ring to this at 25 miles, you can see we're well outside of the range of that VOR station at the moment. So should we take it up to 10,000 feet? So rather than using altitude hold mode, we're going to go IAS mode. and open the throttles to 70%, and you can see it winding in the climb rate to hold the speed. The altitude is shooting up now. So if we get up through 10,000 feet, that'll be enough. Just trying to get it to slow down the needle at 10,000 feet, and I just overdid it. Okay. So we'll overfly Kirkwall and Wick, and then fly again. We're not going to stop at Inverness. We'll fly along Loch Ness, and then come in towards Glasgow and Edinburgh. So now the brake chute's accurate. I'm just reading the live stream comments there. Can I show us opening with the parachute? Yeah, but if I do, I can't use it again. Because it's single use. You need then the ground crew to go and repack it. It's a remarkably still day today. So, head tracking back on. Bit of a break now while we travel over towards the coast of Scotland. I'm going to pass over the Orkney Islands first though. So first on the list, we're looking at, I always get the names of these wrong, North Ronaldsay, Sunday, Ede, Stronsay, Balfour. Yeah, some really interesting little islands. If you go flying around in a little islander or something like that, these are great fun to go in and out of these little airports. Obviously the Vulcan isn't as suited to them. Shall we descend back down below the cloud so you get to see them? So I'm just getting the speed down below 250 knots. Keeping an eye on the indicated airspeed. There goes 250. So we're now in indicated airspeed mode. So if we pull the engines back to idle, this thing can drop like a brick. So you can see, look, the altitude winding off without appreciably gaining any speed. It really isn't that aerodynamic. Obviously if we throw the spoilers out as well, it will descend even faster. So let's try it. If we throw the spoilers out, look at it go. I mean, it's off the scale on the vertical speed already, but you can see the altitude dropping. But you can visually see it outside. So let's come off the spoilers. And all we have to do to lift the nose is increase the power. So we'll continue descending. So the island to our right is North Ronaldsay. Shall we just say excuse me to the co-pilot, we want to have a look out the window. Jump back in our seat. So we're still just descending, coming down to 3,500 feet, still doing 235 knots. It's worth pointing out all of the shades work as well. So when you're flying into the sun, they actually work quite well. Okay, we're down to 2,500 feet, so we're going to put this into altitude hold mode. 2,400 feet, that will do. And we're in bomb mode, so we can just control the direction of the aeroplane with the heading bug. Yeah, so just reading the live stream comments. So someone's saying Sphinx Turner is saying, which simulator is this? This is Flight Simulator on the PC. Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is all stock scenery. This is, yeah, no special add-ons. Should wind the engines up a bit and go through Loch Ness. A speed more befitting a military aircraft, although we've still got to get to Inverness yet. So let's have a look on the map. We need to come back down 30 degrees. So we turned track off, didn't we? There we go. As you can see, now we've turned the loud pedal up a bit. We're doing 300 knots already. If anybody wants to hear the howl, all we have to do is push it forwards further. Or not, maybe you don't hear it at this speed. You can just about hear it. Okay, another 30 degrees. So you can see the flight director goes shooting off and the aeroplane just can't stay with it. So if you need to do sudden changes, you're better off disengaging the autopilot and just taking control. Well, I'm just reading the notes there. Someone's saying they can't get it to hold a set altitude. There is no set altitude. It hasn't got a set altitude in the avionics suite of the Vulcan. The altitude hold happens at the altitude you switch it on. Well, not that I was aware anyway. It might have something in the GPS which is kind of, you know, been retrofitted, but I didn't think it had it. It's like the early models of the Vulcan, although this has it on the approach mode, as it calls it. Early models of the Vulcan didn't have ILS. So this is kind of a bit of a mixture, because it's got the old cockpit. Newer models of the Vulcan had glass instruments. You know, they were glass versions of gauges, but it had glass screens. If you look on an image search online of Vulcan cockpits, you'll see a huge mixture. Some of them have got half of this left, some of them have got almost completely replaced with digital screens. It's quite fascinating actually to see them. So 20 degrees to the right. We've just gone shooting through. That VOR. So we want the wick VOR really, or we could fly at the angle from the previous one, which would be 193 degrees. So if we come down here and we rotate this, it's a pain, isn't it? And if we put the flight director on localizer mode, it's taken a while to do it. You see that it's shooting across. Now normally what you would do, to be honest, we're kind of rigging this, but you go to heading mode, you get the heading bug into the kind of somewhere nearby. So we'll put ourselves on an intercept track, for example. So you can see us doing that. So we'll come across this line, then you'll see the CDI sweep in, and at that point you would go and engage localizer mode, and it would track it. Yeah, so we know that the omni-bearing selector is on about 193, maybe there. Here comes the CDI, look. So if we leave ourselves on that intercept course and put this on localizer, it will sort itself out and start turning left gently. You can see it doing it, look, to match the CDI coming in. So you get it in the ballpark yourself, and then you can track automatically using the flight directors. You can see us all slowly lining up as the CDI comes in. So we're now following that track away from the VOR, but remember it's only quite a short range on it. So we'll be back on heading mode before long anyway. Okay, so we're on our way to Wick. which is on the coast just down here, just ahead of us. Should we pull this down and then we can actually see? Yeah, just reading the livestream comments, it was only a couple of the Vulcans that ended up with the glass cockpit bits and pieces. But yeah, it's funny though, a lot of the older ones, they all got retrofitted with different kit. The ones that went to the Falklands were retrofitted with all kinds of bits they didn't have before, like the ECM kit and stuff like that. And the ones, a couple of them had Shrike missiles retrofitted. So yeah, they had pylons improvised on the outside, which you can do in here. You can go and retrofit, I think, the Shrikes. Yeah, there they are, look. Of course, one of the Vulcans famously had to go and land in Brazil, I think, and they dumped one of the Shrikes in the ocean because at the time they were very, very classified, top secret anti-radiation missiles. One of them didn't fall off the pylon, so they landed in Brazil with this highly classified piece of technology hanging onto the airplane. So yeah, it caused a bit of a political incident that I think Brazil actually held on to that Shrike missile. Probably took it to bits and reverse engineered it. Because back in the early 80s, anti-radiation missiles, well, they came out of Vietnam really, didn't they? But Shrike was a closely guarded piece of technology. So you can see we're wandering around. It's losing the signal, look. We've just left. So let's go back, move this out of the way. Let's go back to bomb mode, which is heading mode, remember. And just use the heading bug. So we want to be leaving here on a heading of 211. So let's go and sort that out. Oops, 211. And then we'll follow along the coast. So this is the airport that we're just flying over. Look at Wick. So let's go and have a look at it from outside. So, someone said about pointing out the sliding round window visors. Yeah, they're up here, aren't they? You can kind of rotate them. Oh no, that's that one. Does it have them? There's the click spot. I did see them the other day and I can't remember how they work now. That's that one. Let me move out of the way of it so we can see the cockpit lid. There they are. Yeah. It's quite clever, isn't it? Of course, now I can't get a free piece of space to zoom back out. Do you get a complete blackout blind for the windscreen? I don't think you do you? Okay, so we're just heading in towards Loch Ness. So the weather is coming slowly. Let's turn the head tracking back on. About another 5 or 10 degrees right, don't we? So altitude at the moment, just under 2,500. It has been snowing in various parts of the UK the last few days, so we are seeing quite accurate renderings of that on high ground. We're doing for fuel. Should have lots. Could get rid of the GPS because we're not using it, are we? So, Lossiemouth does have TACAN, but just to show how that works while we fly past it, if we go, it's 50X is the code, so we go and click on the bottom screw here, we tune in 50X, so 50, it's already on X, so if we come back into the cockpit you'll now see that this should be coming to life. 25 miles at a bearing of about 165 degrees. Obviously that bearing is going to increase as we go past. So it's somewhere over there. Or over there even. No, that's the end of the headland. It's out there. On the other side, yeah, where the land is there. It's a very pretty screen there, isn't it? Can I explain how to get other maps for Little Nav Map? Yeah, there's an unofficial add-on. If you Google Little Nav Map Google Maps, you'll find it. And you put some files in the folder structure of Windows. And then as soon as you've done that, when you click on the world map, you'll get a load of extras appear. But there's various different collections people have made. I'm surprised they still work, to be honest, because to use Google Maps, for example, you generally need an API key. And it has a bandwidth limit on it. So how they've done that, I'm not quite sure. So if we take a measurement from here into that, so we want 201 degrees from where we are at the moment, so let's go and have a look. So we're just spinning the aeroplane round to the right sort of direction. It's on heading bogue, so should be fine. Suddenly got very dark, hasn't it? Because of that. Keep an eye on that altitude. Look outside. You're just about to pass me. I'm on the West Europe server, so it depends what server you're on, I guess. I'm not running transmitter actually. Should I go and run it? People will be able to see me, so I'll become one of the little red aeroplanes. There it goes, look. Transmitter is broadcasting every 5 seconds that location of me. The advantage of doing that is if we go into a browser and go to virtual flight online/who, you can see who's using transmitter at the moment, and I'm the only one up here at the moment by the look of it. If I click on me, but you can see, you know, worldwide there's lots and lots of other people using it. Anyway, it gives you a table down here, so you can see, and it's in reverse order of how long they've been online usually. So I should be slowly climbing up it, I think. Actually, I've been near the bottom when I only just switched it on. Yeah, I'm at the bottom. So if you click on me, it will fly towards me on the map. Anyway, on our way in towards Inverness. Let's get rid of that search box out of the way. And fly the length of Loch Ness. So what's that in the middle? Interesting. In Colmarty Firth. The oil platforms. Or some sort of beacons. Interesting. So you can see a G meter here. You're not supposed to exceed 2G, I think, in the Vulcan. Although it does go up to 8. Or 10, sorry. You're not supposed to, in normal operation, exceed 2G. I think most of that is on account of it being ancient, and it'll fall to bits. lights, you can see Loch Ness up ahead of us. Tootling along at 50% throttle at the moment. Just under 300 knots. So we want to be going what sort of direction for Loch Ness? There's an 8 knot wind from the southeast. Ideally then we want about 217 degrees on the heading bug. So let's do that with the head tracking off so we can concentrate and do it accurately. 80, 207. It's about there. Oh, 17, sorry, not 7. That's a little wrong. Okay, there we go. Just lining up with the lock. We've actually got clear skies for the first time in ages, haven't we? So I wonder if it's worth climbing out to 10,000 feet and programming some of these waypoints in and just letting the Vulcan fly down the country. Might be quite good fun, actually. So if we go back to, while we're flying along Loch Ness or over Loch Ness, turn indicated airspeed mode on. Increase thrust to 75-80%. Let it climb. Take it out to 10,000 feet. And while we're waiting for that, should we go and put the GPS on then? We could program some of the route in, couldn't we? The Vulcan, although it can go supersonic, it won't do it in level flight. Yeah, it's capable of supersonic flight. It tends to, if you're pushing it on the engines, it tends to go level flight just above Mach 0.9. Yeah, you certainly can in a dive make it go supersonic on purpose. Obviously it's the right shape to do it. Okay, just coming up through 6,000. Okay, so we said we were going to program some of this route in. So we want the flight plan page. So we'll put in as our first waypoint Inverness, or EGPE. Enter. Next will be EGEO. In Glasgow, EGPF. Then Edinburgh, EGPH. So we're only going to overfly these places, so don't worry. Then we're going to go out to the St Abbs VOR, which is SAB. Be interesting to see how this particular system handles duplicates. Oh, that's quite cool. A nice easy way. Let's just have a quick look in the aeroplane. See what we're doing. So we're coming up to 12,000 feet. Okay, so while it's levelling out, you can see there's the track alongside us. So we're over the top of Loch Ness at the moment. So after St Abbs, we're going to go down to Newcastle, EGNT, Echo Golf November Tango, enter. Then Leeming, LEE. Then Wharton, Echo Golf November Oscar, Echo Golf November Oscar. It's debatable whether if you want to overfly Liverpool, I guess we can. So we'll put in the Royal Sea VOR WAL. Then over to the Manchester one, MCT, or Mike Charlie Tango. Manchester. Then Gamston, GAM, Golf Alpha Mike. We don't need Waddington on there because it's a straight line over to Coningsby, EGXC, Echo Golf, X-Ray Charlie. Well, just while this is going on, it's worth having a look outside. We're missing some of this. We have some company. Very cool. So let's just get this programmed in. Then Marham, Echo Golf Yankee Mike, Echo Golf Yankee Mike, enter. Mildenhall, Echo Golf Uniform November, Echo Golf Uniform November. Duxford, Echo Golf Sierra Uniform, Echo Golf Sierra Uniform, enter. Begin, Echo Golf Kilo Bravo, Echo Golf Kilo Bravo, enter. Shoreham, Echo Golf Kilo Alpha, then Boscombe, Echo Golf Delta Mike, then Yeovilton, Echo Golf Delta Yankee, then the Berry Head VOR, Bravo Hotel Delta, Bravo Hotel Delta, enter. And then finally Cold Rose is where we'll end, Echo Golf Delta Romeo. We're not going to land at Land's End because it's too small. We want the map view back, please. And okay, so let's get the GPS guidance up and running. So we should be able to switch this to remote. And yep, you can see there goes the flight director, and it's pulling us left onto the track. So the bank is catching up with the flight director. and obviously the CDI now is going to reflect the direction. So the heading bug isn't going to do anything anymore really, so we might as well turn this back around to north so it orients, we can orient in terms of the compass or in terms of the GPS screen that we can see. Okay, so we're heading directly south at the moment to come onto, if we go and line this up, to come back onto the GPS track. And it's turning right now, look, onto that GPS track. So, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know the history of the Vulcan, it was developed in the late 50s as part of a fleet of 3 different aeroplanes, the Valiant, the Victor and the Vulcan. They were nuclear bombers, in the same way that, you know, things like the B-52 were developed originally. Or sorry, the predecessors of the B-52, I should say. But it was designed basically to carry a huge missile that fitted where this bomb bay is. That had a retrofitted. You can see some of the panel lines reflect actually what was originally there. It's one giant missile that could be dropped, that you can actually put onto it in the simulator. You can see it there, it's the blue steel missile. If we go and do it just momentarily, and there it is. So the original colour scheme of the Vulcan, they were all white. They were repurposed later in life, so that's when they got the camouflage as general bombers. So should we get a nice view across the hills from the cockpit and some of the cockpit in view. If we do this correctly, we can go to Windows, Open Window Layout, and Minimal. Put this up in the corner, get rid of the toolbar. So you can actually see, although this gets in the way, doesn't it? So maybe we'll just look at it now and again. Okay, so now you can see where we're going and what's going on. But yeah, there are various Vulcans in museums around the country. There's one in Hendon RAF Museum. If anybody wants to go for a day out and go and have a walk around it. But there's several in other museums around the place. The interesting thing that the aircraft there aren't many around of is the Victor. So famously in the early 80s, when the Vulcans performed a strike on the Falkland Islands, it was supported by Victor tankers because the VC-10 hadn't been converted at the time. And it required, to get one of the Vulcans down to the Falkland Islands, or 2 of them I should say, it required 11 Victors working in concert with each other. So we can see that other Vulcan's going down for some low level by the look of it. Yeah, I've got a stick and throttles here. I've just put it on autopilot so I can have a break for a bit. And so we get to admire the scenery. So we're just coming in towards North Connell, and then we'll turn left. Yeah, just looking at Curtis's comment there about the Black Buck missions. I didn't realise until in quite recent years that there were many Black Buck missions. It wasn't just the one go at bombing Port Stanley. They took out, or they had several goes at radar stations. Several of the missions failed. They had to either turn back, or one of them, like as I said earlier, the aircraft had to divert to Brazil. Caused havoc at the time. But I guess these stories slowly come out over the years, don't they? So it'll be interesting to see if it makes this turn, because if the directors and the aircraft position divert by too much, the autopilot can give up and disengage. So here goes the turn. So there's the airfield down there, look, Cornwall. Yeah, just reading Sean's comment there. I think the team from Just Flight went to visit one of those locations, or maybe both of them, to record the sounds, which is why it sounds so good. They got to sit in, for the day and record all the switches, as well as the engine run-up, of course. But they must have done both versions, the 300 and the 200, because I think they've got recordings of both. So that if you didn't know, anyone listening, not all versions of the Vulcan make that peculiar howling noise. It was the earlier versions' engines that I think it's to do with either the inlet or the exhausts are a slightly different shape, which causes the howl. So we're on our way to Glasgow. So I'm going to go and make a coffee. I'll be back in a minute. So see you in a couple of minutes. Right, so I'm back. I think I have seen the Vulcan fly when I was young. I went to the air show, RAF air show at Briars Norton many years ago. I would have been about 12 maybe. I went on my own because we lived just down the road at the time. And I remember seeing the two things that impressed me at that air show. One, actually three things then. One of them, a de Havilland Vampire and Venom flew low over the airfield at like treetop height to open the show, and that sticks in my mind of them, you know, ripping across the airfield. I was right on the edge of the runway as well and saw them fly along the runway flat out. And then a starfighter did very much the same thing, came barreling down the runway at a hell of a speed. I think they did say at the time that he was like Mach 0.9 something or other, as much as they could get away with safely, with a little bit of margin. And also, yeah, I saw the Vulcan, so it may have even been XH558, which was the airshow Vulcan. But yeah, looking back now, whenever you see Vulcans do air shows, it suddenly makes sense with the way this thing flies, if indeed it is accurate, that you've got such little negative elevator authority, or elevon authority I should say. The only way to get the nose down from a steep climb at low speed is to roll it and do a wing over, which is why you see the Vulcans do wing overs like that. So Sean is saying he was very lucky his grandfather was in charge of maintenance at RAF St Athan, but the heavy bombers all got serviced. Very cool. Juicy Aviation says, hey back. So we descend down now, we're coming out of the hills and go lower level now. So what we need to do that, back inside the aeroplane. You'll notice down here they've got autopilot control. So I was going to do a video specifically about this, but I'll talk about it now as well. So the controls up here at the top of the panel, they control the flight directors. So the autopilot in most big aeroplanes is actually two systems. There's the flight directors, which figure out what needs to happen, and the autopilot, which is remarkably dumb and just does as it's told. You know, makes the aeroplane, or changes the attitude of the aeroplane to bring it in line with what the flight director is telling it. So these settings control the flight directors, which are the yellow lines you can see on the attitude indicator. So if we want to control altitude, we can do it through the autopilot in a kind of a remarkably dumb manner, because there's no altitude pre-selection in this. So at the moment it's on altitude hold. If we turn this round to indicated airspeed hold, at the moment nothing will happen, although we have famous last words that we say that and it kicks up in the air. But it's settling down again. But if we reduce thrust, in order to maintain the same airspeed with less thrust, it will point the nose down. You know, so obviously you accelerate downhill, and then you can just re-engage altitude hold when you've got to the altitude you want to get at, or get to, I should say. So let's just, out of interest, have a look on Little Nav Map on this plot. One of the nice tricks that Little Nav Map has got, if we go back to the default layout to get the toolbars back, it's got this lovely altitude chart which shows you where the hills are along the route. So as long as we keep to about 3,000 feet, we should be good all the way to the end. which, you know, typically flying around the UK you can usually get away with 2,000 or 3,000 feet anyway. But that gives us some assurance that we're dropping down to 10,000 feet at the moment. We're just below 250 knots, so we're looking good. So yeah, I have not actually checked the fuel since we took off. Let's go and have a look. So as long as you manage it carefully, you can actually fly well over 1,000 miles in the Vulcan. Don't think we're going to manage that today somehow. Going too fast for huge swathes of it. It's interesting actually, when you climb up to sort of 30,000 feet, 35, 40,000 feet, you can watch the fuel flow reverse. Just, you know, at the same thrust level you can see the needles going backwards, because obviously the higher altitude you get much better fuel flow. So the engines work more efficiently at higher altitude, but also you've got less drag because the air's thinner. So up around, I think, 36,000 feet is one of the sweet spot altitudes, but obviously the higher your airframe will support, the more efficiently you will get. So I think the ceiling for the Vulcan is up around sort of 55, 56,000 feet. Yeah, Matteo's just saying he's been looking at DME approaches. It's a bit a handful, isn't it? There's a lot to do if you're trying, or certainly if you do it on guidance, also with autopilot. If you just hand fly it and you use the flight directors, it's not so bad. But it's still you have to plan in advance of what you're going to do at what point to keep a handle on it. Should we descend a bit faster? If I pull more thrust away, obviously it will, to maintain airspeed, it will just drop the nose harder. So if we put the head tracking back on and centre it up, see us coming down through the cloud layer. Need to probably be a little bit careful about icing today. It's not as cold as it has been in the UK, but you can see there is snow in places. I don't know if do we get an outside air temperature gauge somewhere? Not sure that we do. We could always call up ATIS on the radio at some point. So coming down through 4,000, let's open the engines up to reduce the descent rate. So that will lift the nose. Unfortunately that's going to put us into the cloud though, and if it is icing, that's going to be really bad. Yeah, we're a bit too low for comfort. 2,500 feet, let's try it for a while. So put it back to altitude hold. The aeroplane will happily just chug along. Sort of between 230, 240 knots usually at 50% throttle. Although at this low, could be affected quite a lot by air density, I guess. Let's just have a check around. So we've got the anti-icing controls are over here. Look, that's off at the moment. Got manual heat controls. I guess we'll see if anything fails. It'd be interesting to see if it does, to be honest. That should have gone down earlier, by the way. Oh well. Well, I'm just reading the comments from Sean there about the ILS. I don't think the original Vulcans didn't have ILS. It was added as a pod. So the way this is implemented with showing a flight director for vertical position, I don't think is right. It might be. Obviously, we don't know until we get a real Vulcan pilot come along, and he'll probably laugh when they see that and say, "We didn't have that. We had the one there, but maybe they did. Maybe in later models, they may have had it." But I did go looking around, scouring photographs of bomber cockpits, and they really did have the approach as an option. So maybe they did. And they did have, VOR radio. I certainly don't know about the autopilot because it has glide slope mode, so you can engage it and it will then follow the glide slope if you have it. But yeah, it'd be fascinating to get hold of a book about the real thing, but they never go into that sort of detail in a book, do they? Not a book telling a story anyway. But certainly if you go to like Bing AI or Google Bard or something and ask it, did the Avro Vulcan have ILS, it will just say no. But then sometimes if you ask the right question, it will volunteer that in later years it was retrofitted and tells you the story about that. Problem with AI though, you don't know the sources a lot of the time, do you? So then you end up going and digging around, and you may as well have just looked for yourself in the first place. Okay, so where are we? We're just approaching Edinburgh. So view this from the outside. There's the bridge, Forth Bridge, and the new bridge over the Firth of Forth as well. Interesting, if you go and visit Edinburgh and you want to try and take a picture of these bridges, it's actually surprisingly difficult to get a good angle of them from the side of the water because there are no approaches that are easy to get to. Okay, heading south in a moment. There we go, it's turning. Off towards the St Abbs VOR. I keep forgetting its name. Terrible. So in terms of overall fuel, let's have a look at what we've used so far. See, I don't think I took off with full fuel, because we haven't gone that far yet. Although we have been flying low all the time and obviously not very efficient at low altitude. It's a shame not to go sightseeing, isn't it? So we probably will be stopping off maybe Newcastle to get some fuel. Leeming would make more sense, wouldn't it? Because it's an Air Force base. And it's got ILS, so we can simulate an approach. So if we said, instead of just doing this directly, well, we'll figure it out on the way. We'll overfly Newcastle. So we've only got about 150 miles to go and we'll be approaching Leeming. What's the altitude of Leeming, by the way? Let's go and have a look. Airfield elevation, please. 130 feet, so we probably want 2,600 feet on the way in. We're at 2,500 at the moment, which is fine. It means we're coming underneath the beam. So 110.30. Go and do that right now before we have to worry about it. Whoa! Oh, I didn't know you could do that. You can't. Suddenly the frame rate has had a huge hit, and I wonder why that is. Probably just the photogrammetry, maybe. I'm tempted, rather than flying along the coast, to go straight in for Leeming. So if we were to put a waypoint in here, for example, and get rid of those two out of the plan. So 100 miles away, 156 degrees will put us straight into the glide slope, basically. So let's go for 156 degrees on the heading bug. And put this on bomb mode, which is heading, and it should turn right. And there it goes. We are going to need to climb because there's hills in the way. So we're going to take this up 1,000 feet at least. So we're going to go and put airspeed mode on and open the engines up. So you can see it's winding. It's because it's losing height in the turn. And then it will correct. Although we're not going to be that much higher, are we? Well, we'll just take it out to 3,000, for example. Just to... Okay. So the wind is actually going to push us away from the track, so we'll steer a couple of degrees across it, just so we get closer to the line on approach. Yeah, maybe we will go a bit higher. This is quite low, isn't it? We're going across higher ground here as well, which you can see that could go wrong in a hurry. All the finger marks on the glass. I have words with, that's people pointing at things. Can you air-to-air refuel? No. It's got nothing like that yet. We could, we're going to go straight down to Leeming. I'm just trying to think, further on down the country, we've got Coningsby in the route. I've got Waddington scenery in, so we could change the... I don't know. I've not been into Gamston yet, I don't think. So all I was going to do is overfly some of these cities, and then maybe do another touch and go at one of the military airfields here, because there's another one here, look. There's Waddington's underneath here. So, and there's Cranwell, obviously, and then a bit further then you've got Marham, Mildenhall and Lakenheath, all right next to each other. We'll see. So just where we come over the hills, we're going to climb up above the cloud. Let's open the engines. So obviously the Vulcan can climb like nobody's business. So I added a collection of maybe 4 or 5 pieces of scenery. You'll see it when we get to, yeah, if we go into Waddington, you'll be able to see it. I've got the free version of Waddington from FlightSim.2. I'm just going to put this onto altitude hold before anything happens. Yeah, you'll see when we get to Waddington, I've got some nice scenery, and it's got the military aircraft parked everywhere. So it's got like a couple of A400Ms and various other bits and pieces parked around. There's a Meteor on display somewhere, and I think there's a Hurricane on a stand as well at part of the airfield. Or I may be muddling it up with another one, I can't remember now. Maybe I'm thinking of Coningsby. Because Coningsby's got, I've got the payware version of Coningsby, and that's got Eurofighters and military hangars everywhere. I guess Marham will end up with the F-35s, is it? Or are they going over to Coningsby now? I'm not sure. So, just raced up to 9,400 feet. So yeah, maybe we should, I'll stop at Leeming for fuel. Maybe I should just go, we'll cut out some of these middle, I was going to go to Wharton just for, because it has some history, but if we cut some of those out, go to Waddington from Leeming, that might make a bit more sense. Coningsby isn't so much needed. It's interesting to look at Waddington though, because it's a free collection of sceneries which give you a very good looking airfield. Yeah, and then we'll fly over the American bases at Mildenhall and Lakenheath and over Duxford and down to the south. How are we doing on fuel? Not a lot left. So it's pretty much straight in on the GPS track. So we go and clear out some of those legs we had in here. If I turn head tracking off for a moment. Ooh, this is interesting. Can I actually remove it? Maybe I can't. Unless one of these buttons will do it. Oh, that was a good guess, wasn't it? So there's Edinburgh. There's the... So we want from EGPH down, so EGNT would have been Newcastle, which we're now not going to. So ideally we want something fairly close to this line, don't we? There we go, Lama. So if we go to that and click here, insert waypoint, Lama. Then get rid of that one. Then get rid of Newcastle. And that takes us from that straight line is straight from Lama to Leeming, which is perfect for what we're now doing. Then we need to correct the rest of it, don't we? Oops. So Wolsey, Manchester, we can get rid of some of those. So that one goes away. Wolsey goes away. Manchester goes away. So instead of Gamston, we're going to Waddington. EGXW. Then remove Gamston. That's better. XC can go away. That was Coningsby. That's looking better. Yeah. So that then matches what we've got in Little Nav Map. Cool. Proper wintry conditions in the UK today, isn't it? So I'm just going to have a look at the live stream chat. Can you air-to-air refuel? We've already answered that. Which we've done something military with Scampton. We're running out of aircraft. Blah blah blah. Sean's saying, sorry if I missed the answer to Garrett's question, but there's a tab on the EFB to start taking fuel, or if you're positioned behind the KC-135. You could simulate it, but it isn't like DCS now. Michael Evans, how good is it at gliding if you run out of gas? It glides like an anvil. We can simulate it to show you. So we're at 9,000 feet at the moment. So knowing that we're coming in anyway to Leeming, and these, oh, the Pennines are quite, I don't want to tempt fate. Although we're not actually tracking GPS, are we? Should we do that? If we go and say remote here, it will go for the current leg. So it's going to do a right turn. put us back onto the leg. So it should unwind itself fairly sharpish. There it goes. Notice that again the flight director's way ahead of the aeroplane. So the autopilot isn't very, it doesn't ever give it very strong commands. It doesn't react quickly. So yeah, I was going to point out, what will it glide like? So say you wanted to maintain, let's pull the throttles back a bit. Just coming back to 250 knots. Okay, so then you're flying along at 250 knots, and we switch this over to go indicated airspeed mode. So at the point I engage that, the airplane's going to remember where that needle is now. If we pull the throttles back to idle, watch what happens. So it's going to try and maintain 250 knots. Look at the glide angle, look at the drag. So it's dropping off the scale here, it's probably dropping about 6,000-7,000 feet a minute. Look at the altitude falling off. That's gliding, it glides like a space shuttle. So if I open the throttle back up, obviously it will lift the nose to maintain the same airspeed. $110 seems incredibly slow. Usually on approach, even although it's a dirty aircraft at the time because the undercarriage is out, you're looking at 150 knots for approach. And then wind it back to maybe 130, but it doesn't like going slowly. Half the problem with going so slowly is because of the shape of the airplane, you lose airflow over the control surfaces. So if you go too slowly and then you haven't got enough authority to drop the nose, and it can become lethal really quickly. So if you get too nose up, too slow in the Vulcan, you're dead basically. Sometimes the autopilot can't keep up with the flight director. I think that's what I'd say about that. And if the margin between the two gets too big, it will disengage. So it can't perform wonders. So you always have to be ready to take over and become involved. So I'm just waiting to come down to 5,000 and then I'll stop the descent. Go, we engaged altitude hold. So you can see the GPS has now lined us up. Yeah, it tends to be if you're using VORs and you get too far away from the track, it can't perform wonders with holding a VOR radial. So you get too far away from it, say on a tight turn or whatever, it would just give up. But that's, common to a lot of aeroplanes. Let's put this into, see some more idea of where the hills are. So we could drop a lot, look, we could come down to 2,500 feet. Or 3,000 feet even, so let's do that. Airspeed mode. Drop another 2,000. Maybe not that viciously, hey? So we're kind of in the ballpark already for the GPS. Sorry, for the ILS, I should say. So we'll go over to localizer in a moment. If you want the glide slope to work as well, you have to do that. If we do both though, look, you can do one or the other. But we'll wait until we're closer. The easier way to do it, to be honest, is to fly in by hand and just use the directors. Because you'll see the CDI, and then the yellow line on this is kind of the fictional ILS. There's just a warning appearing there on the indicated airspeed ribbon. It doesn't like that we're going so slowly. Yeah, as soon as we started to get near 150 knots without the gear down, it was warning us. That looks pretty cold down there, doesn't it? Do we have TACAN? We do, 73X at Leeming, so that'll give us a distance countdown. So we'll go and look on TACAN. We want 73X. And then back into the cockpit. We've now got the TACAN showing. 26 miles to run. The same direction as the aeroplane, look, because it's obviously the same base. If you want this all to make sense, you could spin this around, but it's just as easy to see the airplanes going that way, and then the CDI will be in the middle when we switch, but it won't show up until we switch over to show localizer mode. We might be able to pick it up from out here. If I turn the autopilot off, or disengage it. So push in is disengage. We can now happily switch over to localizer, and we'll see, yeah, the needle's off to the right. We're below the glide slope. Yeah, so we've picked up the signal from the runway. So we know the runway is on a course, or sorry, the ILS beam is on a course of 156 degrees, okay? So we can use that. So let's go and turn on head tracking so we can look around as well. So we've now gone above the beam. Yeah, you can see the yellow line there. We're chasing the CDI back into the middle, and then we'll turn back to 156. We're a little bit beyond it at the moment. So we're still high. See, if you wanted to, at this point, you could spin this whole thing round to put 156, whoops, directly ahead of us. See, we're going runway direction at the moment, but we're off to the left. Oh, head tracking is a real pain sometimes, especially with small click spots. It's drifting. Okay, there we go. So we're not a million miles away from it. So if we go right now, so this lines up with what we're supposed to be doing. Gone below the glide slope. We're 16 miles out still though, so we're a long way out. I'm amazed we've picked it up from this far out, to be honest. See, with this spun round, it makes a bit more sense in terms of the CDI and the aircraft direction. I think 180 knots or so. So CDI is lined up. We're in, just to double check, we're in localizer mode. We could switch on approach mode. In which case, if we were to engage glide slope and track and engage the master switch on the autopilot, it would guide us in. Where's the fun in letting it do it when we can do it? We're just coming in from underneath the glide slope into it, look. So we're now 12 miles out. So if you have a look on the map, you should see, yeah, that we're going right down the pipe. So at this point we're going to slow down a little bit, get the wheels out. We're a bit low. Let's hope we do have some visibility, hey? Get the airspeed under control. We're drifting a little bit high, so we're watching the attitude indicator there. We've gone low, so we're just chasing it back a little bit. We're off to the left, so we're just gently turning right. 7 miles out. How are we doing for fuel? Yeah, we've got loads of fuel to do a go around if we need to. Getting the markers. Still quite fast. So 1,000 feet. Oh no, 1,900 feet. Sorry. I always forget the most significant number on the altitude readout. It changes first often. Oh, we've gone off to one side quite a lot. Let's just turn. I was just worrying about speed there. It just shows you how quickly you can divert from where you should be. I'm just turning us back towards the centre line. Starting to see something on the ground. We're low. I'd love to see where the runway's gone. Should be right in front of us. We are 2 miles out. Where's the runway? It's off to the left slightly, and it's slightly below, but I don't want to put the nose down until I can see it. There it is. It's a bit foggy, isn't it? So, spoilers. And we're down. So diverted from the track a little bit in the last couple of miles, but not anything too bad. It always looks worse from the cockpit than from outside. It's very odd actually, that. So we need some fuel somewhere. Is it back up that way? It's horrible and cold. Ah, fuel bowser. Awesome. If we park this side of it, do you think we'll be close enough? If we stay on the taxiway? We'll just go round it. Well, we're going to pretend. We're going to go and fill up. So we've got a bit of a journey out along the taxiway until we get to runway 16. So we just stay on the taxiway basically. This has to go back to takeoff now. It's that winter wonderland, isn't it? I wonder if the rest of the country is this cloudy and misty. Windsock just hanging straight down. It's just this freezing mist everywhere. Nearly. So let's get the heading bug set for 160 before we go anywhere, before we do anything. Or 155, isn't it? 156, sorry, for the runway direction. Well, that was the ILS direction, but it may not match, but could be offset, but we'll get it in the neighbourhood. So then we'll put this into bomb mode for the autopilot, so if we can gauge it on the way out, it won't be a major issue. We'll also get this ready, put this on indicated airspeed mode. The rest of it's all looking fine. Right. Knots, 110, 120, 130, and begin rotation. Gear up. Keep the wings level. Hold the pitch. There was an airfield down there somewhere. Yeah, look, it's complaining, if you read that, undercarriage, it's because we're going too slowly. Quite a steep climb out. Now obviously we're recovering some airspeed and it's fine. Okay, so we can go revert to GPS mode now. So we go to remote over here and it should be close enough to the track to, it's gone to the next leg automatically because we were near it. So we're looking good. Now just double check, yeah, track is pulled up, but this is not engaged, remember, because we disengaged it on the way in. So we've just engaged autopilot, so it's now going to take control of the aeroplane. We want to put that on the middle setting over there, so it basically means we'll have control of whatever we do. So we're just going through 250 knots, so we'll go and reset. Look at that eye tracking or head tracking drifting. It's terrible when it does that. Yeah, it didn't do that, did it? Let's go and do that again. I thought the middle setting would work just the same as height, but obviously it doesn't. I'm just pulling it back to 250 knots. Okay, let's pull that again, if my head doesn't drift enough to be able to click it. So it should go nose up with the thrust. It's not doing it, is it? Now it's doing it, but it's taking a while to catch up. No, it's not. It's not doing it at all anymore. Right. So 50% or 40% or so to hold 250 knots. It's just freewheeling at the moment. So engage, engage, engage. It's working, but it's not behaving. So then if we were to open the throttle more, it should climb more. It's going to, yeah. I'm just expecting it to react more than it's doing so. No, it's still increasing speed. Look, it's not. What the hell is going on? It's in height mode on the flight director. Very, very strange. I wonder if we cycle it through altitude hold. No, it's not controlling height anymore. How weird. Kind of on the outside view, there we go. Yeah, I want to get on top of this for the moment. So the autopilot is powered. Track mode is on, which is why it's doing lateral tracking. We engage the autopilot. Altitude hold mode is engaged, but it's not. Oh, maybe it's just come to life. Or not. How weird. Yeah, I think that might be a bug. We seem to have lost autopilot for height. How strange. It was working earlier, it's just suddenly gone wrong. There's no warning lights on. Let's just have a quick look around. So powered flight controls are all working, the field controls are all working. The pressure head heaters are on. Very strange. cycle that again. It's working. Suddenly come back to life. But now it thinks it's climbing. It's not frozen up, is it? You surely get a warning about that, maybe. And your altitude wouldn't work. And your indicated airspeed wouldn't work. Very odd. So it looks like we'll have a bit more luck with Waddington anyway with the approach. So if we go to heading mode, we want about 140 degrees to allow for the wind. So let's move our heading bug. Put ourselves in bomb mode. You know, that's not tracking. I think we've frozen up. I wonder if that is the problem. Looks like we might be cutting the flight short then at Waddington. No, it's just suddenly come back to life, look. How weird. I love it when things like this happen, because it's like part of my day job is trying to figure out why things are doing what they're doing. I don't think it was the cruise selector, because that's really to do with the operation of the engines, nothing to do with the avionics. And it's still not holding altitude unless it's thawed out. So now that's working. I wonder if we did freeze up. No, it's getting stuck, look, 1,000 feet up, it's gone wrong. Oh well. So we're going to be calling this at Waddington. So we want 11070. What are we doing? 11070 on the nav. You can either do it here or you can do it over here, and that will get you the decimals. So we know we've got that configured for ILS for Waddington, sorry. Did I say Waddington? I meant to say Waddington. Waddington is a country house. National Trust. 204 degrees. So this is on GPS mode at the moment. We can probably safely put it back onto remote. Oh, we actually know we want GPS mode, don't we? Thinking though we could do with spinning this round, but I daren't do it. I'm going to turn the autopilot off. Disengage. So we're wanting to fly 140 degrees. We're closer to 150 at the moment, so let's turn left. So then 204, so we'll line this up while we're drifting out across the countryside. So that's the direction we're going, that's the direction we turn to for the runway, yeah? Does that make sense? It's all backwards on here though. Still should make a little bit of sense. We can switch this over to localizer. We got a, yes, we've got Waddington 118X. So we'll go over to the oh, it's obviously not 118, it's 118. 118. Then come back. So that's giving us distance, 15 miles out. And it's at 180 degrees, which is about 30 degrees off the nose, which makes sense of what we can see. Yeah. So we need to start controlling height. What's the airfield elevation at Waddington? 230 feet. So we want about 2,800 feet when we get to the airfield. So let's sort this out. Should we get the head tracking straightened up as well before we get there? So when we get there, we turn the aeroplane until the heading bug is pointing straight up the gauge. You can see the glide slope marker is already coming in, even though we are 11 miles out. So I'm not even going to attempt to use the autopilot, seeing as we know it's a bit broke. We can have another zero vis landing, aren't we? I know how to pick these places, don't I? So we have a look at the map. You can see we're about to turn. So this is coming round towards the runway. I imagine we'll overshoot. I'm getting too low now. So let's just straighten out, fly onto the beam. Get the wheels down. So we are 8 miles out. We're off to the right, so we'll just add to that intercept angle a little bit. CDI should be coming in anytime soon. You would hope. We're a bit low on the glide slope. Whoa, we've gone way too fast. Still off to the left, we're only 5 miles out. I'm getting some turbulence in the cold air here. And part of that is the speed though, a little bit slow. We're just coming in, is that the CDI moving? I hope it is. Yes it is, perfect. Can't see anything yet. Given the broken autopilot, I'm hoping we can get into Waddington. We're 3 miles out, 1,400 feet, we're getting a bit high. No, we're too fast. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, this one, hasn't it? .800 feet. We're on the centre line exactly. The line has disappeared on the... Right, so we're off to the right. 600 feet, we're too high. No, we've gone into the fields. There's the runway. We went into the grass. That was, yeah, you wouldn't have even attempted that in the real world. That was quite amusing, wasn't it? Didn't see a single thing. That was proper zero visibility. We should have called it at 500 feet, really. I was hoping to see the lights right in front of us, but we were just to the side of the runway in the grass. Look at that visibility. I haven't seen it that bad in the sim for a long time. So that's why you have a decision height in the real world. But you wouldn't have, you'd have got to sort of 500 feet and said no. Because we have about... how much visibility do you reckon that is? Look, it's just there. About 4 plane lengths. That's mad. But yeah, in the real world they wouldn't have carried on, they would have pulled up and flown somewhere else. So the reason really we've come here is, let's turn the weather off so you can actually see Waddington, because it's really nicely done. There's a C-130 parked over there. There's a Voyager, I think, parked down the far end, or an Atlas. I forget which one's which. There's another C-130 over there. There's a C-17 over there. Another C-130 in the distance. If we go and taxi around the back of here past the buildings. Of course, it's got animated radar as well, which is quite nice. This is free, by the way. This is FlightSim.2. As I say, there's about 4 or maybe 5 sets of scenery you have to download. They're all free, but it details. If you go to the Waddington listing on FlightSim.2, it tells you in the notes which are the ones you need. Yeah, someone's going to have to go and put the hosepipe on the undercarriage and go and relay the turf alongside the runway, I think. Because yeah, the Vulcan has the same engines that Concorde had. They just don't have reheat in the Vulcan. There's a C-130 parked there. Gives you some idea of the size of the Vulcan when you see it next to a C-130. That it's significantly bigger than a 130. It's a Chinook. We're going to park up the far end with the other aeroplanes, shall we? Just so we get to be nosy on the way. There's Harrier. Oh no, not Harrier. Hunter parked here, I think. So there's the aircraft that the politicians use when they're doing or state visits and things. It's the UK branded aircraft over there. The C-130 with the modern propellers. We're going to park in this corner, shall we? Let's hope our wing goes past the post. Yeah, just. Okay, there we go. So we can obviously shortcut shutting the aeroplane down. If we go and get rid of that panel. Let's turn the head tracking off, it's being a pain again. We can say go straight for cold and dark.
Cold and dark selected.
And that will automatically open all the doors outside and put the ladder out. Oh, so yeah, a bit of an uneventful journey in the end. We had to cut it short because I only like flying with live weather, and the weather you can see it closed in. We couldn't get into the half the airfields. The last one was almost zero. This was zero visibility. It was ridiculous. So someone's asking about, yeah, this is the Toby head tracker. So if I turn it on, it's pretty good. It does wander a little bit, which, as you can see, with small click spots becomes a problem unless you lean into them, which allows you to do, obviously, very easily. But you have to get into the habit of doing that, of really leaning to things to take control of them. But as you saw during that flight, it may have been the cold that caused it. We lost the autopilot on the latter part of the flight. I'm not sure why. So whether that will be showing up as a bug, or it may be something I didn't do, may just be to do with looking after the temperatures. But yeah, it went seriously wrong. Okay, I guess the takeaway today though is decision heights. They're there for a reason. Thankfully we're in a simulator, so nothing got damaged. But no, I would suspect that the problems we saw with the autopilot either are a bug or to do with me not managing temperatures correctly. But again, every time you take a plane up, you learn something new, don't you? So we'll have to go and do some reading around that. But I'm not sure that's covered in their documentation yet. Right. I'm going to go anyway, so I'll see you all again soon.